courage and strength to forget why he was arrested. Because today, the European Union doesn't even know why Bazoum was arrested. Do you understand? So, if we pretend to have forgotten why he was arrested, now we can go out and make grand democratic proclamations about constitutional order. By the way, just in passing, I would like to remind the European Union that there is another president being held captive with his wife, who also deserves to have the European Union talk about him, in this case, Maduro. Or is Maduro not a man too? He's also a president.
Greetings, families. Welcome back once again. I hope you are well. I hope your day is good. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm sure you heard a lot about this news already concerning Niger as president and the European Union. Yes, the owners of Africa, the colonizers of Africa, the dictators of the world, they want the ex-president to be released 2nd of April. I must give credit to New World for sharing this debate with us. I'm learning a lot from them because I told you I don't understand French, and I have not been following these countries because I don't understand. Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Togo, and the rest. No, I don't understand. So why? But I'm learning, doing this thing that I'm doing. And so, families, get a cup of tea, get coffee, wine, whatever you want, and listen on your TV. Don't break your phone, please, to what our brothers has to say about what is going on between Niger, AES, and European Union. What would they do? 2nd of April. I'll be back.
Diplomatic relations between Niamey and Brussels. Since July 26, 2023, the presidential palace in Niamey has changed occupants, but the European Union has not given up on restoring constitutional order, quote unquote. They would like to see Mohammed Bazoum, who is still being held, regain his presidential seat before the symbolic deadline of April 2nd, 2026. Is this the dictate of a distant power or a matter of democratic principle? While the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CNSP, is strengthening its alliances with the AES countries and turning towards the Eastern Bloc, Brussels seems determined to play its hand, its final card. But what leverage does the EU really have now that its military presence is fading and its development aid remains frozen? Is this a realistic ultimatum or a final symbolic gesture before a definitive break? For 90 minutes, we will analyze the implications of this new tension. And to discuss this, we have guests on set today. Didier Nourdine Alou. Hello, Didier.
Hello, Gilles. Hello to our listeners and viewers, and welcome to all.
Didier Alou is a journalist and communications consultant working towards social behavior change. He also heads the Africa Development Structure, abbreviated Africa Defense, accompanied by the man who doesn't move, certainly, who hasn't moved today either. Its sound is excellent. Sogo Yukejewi. Good morning. Hello viewers, and happy Sunday, especially to everyone. Former ambassador, journalist Niger, the European Union wants to restore Bazoum to power before April 2nd, 2026. That's the topic. What do you think about it? Write to us. Mainly via WhatsApp +22 8960844343. You also have the option to comment on this show through the social networks that share our content. We are live on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. Comment whether you agree with us or not. Like this show to support us. For those who haven't subscribed to New World Forum yet, do it now so you don't forget. And so, the first focus of this show, dear guests, Didier Alou, what exactly is the basis for the European Union's desire to restore Mohammed Bazoum to power before April 2nd? Is this just a diplomat's fantasy, or is it a real threat to Niger's transition?
In reality, what's happening is that first you have to read the resolution. The resolution describes President Bazoum as a key partner of the European Union. And the same President Bazoum is known to say, isn't he, that France has, like Niger's uranium, no mercy. Well, so when you hear that, you immediately understand why Bazoum is described as a key partner of the European Union. In reality, it's France, but by extension, the European Union. I think that to better understand what's happening in this matter, you have to dive into the very history of the European Parliament. The European Union hasn't always been called the European Union. It has an ancestor called the ECSC. The ECSC is the European Coal and Steel Community. So this ECSC was created in 1952. And what was its role? It was the years after the war, so Europe needed to be rebuilt. So a lot of raw materials were needed, especially steel and coal at that time. So Europeans were afraid that a new war would break out over raw materials in Europe. So it was for this purpose that the ECSC was also created, and its mission was to regulate so that if there were raw materials somewhere, especially coal and steel, they would be properly distributed, everyone would get their share, and there would be no conflict over these resources. But starting in 1962, this European Community for Coal and Steel evolved. That is to say, it was from 1962 that we started calling it that. The European Union Parliament, and it was given more political functions. But the main function did not change, it was just concealed. And if you don't mind, let's go over it a bit. We see that the European Union Parliament, its primary function is legislative because it is the body that passes laws within the Union. Its second function is budgetary. And its third function is, of course, to oversee and guide political direction. There is something normative that is hidden under this third function because that's where everything is included. We talk about democracy, human rights, etc. But the primary function of the CK has not changed. Even if it is not written in black and white, the spirit remains. So this is to tell you that beyond the roles we know of the European Union Parliament, there is something slyly hidden in its primary function, which is linked to raw materials. So it's not a matter of chance. If you see that it is this European Union Parliament that describes President Bazoum as a key partner. We've always told you here on this platform, President Bazoum did not represent Niger's interests at all. President Bazoum actually represented the interests of foreign powers, especially France. We have to call things as they are. Now, when you look at the various statements that have been made, they're saying that President Bazoum must be reinstated before April 2nd. Why this date? This date because April 2nd marks the constitutional end of President Bazoum's term. That is to say, if Bazoum had remained in power, his term would have ended as of April 2nd. And those supporting the resolution, the European parliamentarians say that time is running out. But time is running out in relation to what? For a president who has already been ousted for almost 3 years. Why? It is only now, according to them, that time is running out. What is really happening is that this is a timeline being rolled out by the imperialists, but it has now reached a certain stage. You know that after the overthrow of President Bazoum, there was a flurry of sanctions which were imposed on Niger. You also know how, as we've always said on this platform, how people maneuvered, the Westerners, the imperialists maneuvered. They used ECOWAS, the international banking institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, and even the WEMU, etc. We also remember the numerous security pressures that have been brought to bear on Niger and on the AES. We also recall how much progress the AES is making, how the AES is now establishing itself as a regional group that can be relied upon. So all of this is not well received. If ECOWAS's military intervention has failed and all political and diplomatic pressures have failed as well. In fact, this was even mentioned in the European Union Parliament because they clearly stated that all diplomatic pressures have failed and that now is the time for action. So we are right to ask ourselves what this parliament will actually do if the set deadline, if that date has passed.
That's a question. As we have on our tablet, I will relay it to you when the time comes, Your Excellency. The European Union is talking about constitutional order. What kind of order are we talking about today? Because for Niamey, this is outright interference.
No, let's not cry interference at every turn. If the European Union is concerned about a man who has been arrested, well, that's humanitarian. Especially if the European Union has the courage and strength to forget why he was arrested. Because today, the European Union doesn't even know why Bazoum was arrested. Do you understand? So, if we pretend to have forgotten why he was arrested, now we can go out and make grand democratic proclamations about constitutional order. By the way, just in passing, I would like to remind the European Union that there is another president being held captive with his wife, who also deserves to have the European Union talk about him, in this case, Maduro. Or is Maduro not a man too? He's also a president. Maduro hadn't finished his term. He was democratically elected. So what I'm telling you is that, in fact, in Niger, the European Union doesn't care at all about Bazoum. The European Union is after its uranium. Well, that counts for peanuts. It's the uranium. The European Union would have been honest if they had said, we're giving you until April 2nd to give us back the uranium mines, to give us the uranium you've seized. Otherwise, well, it's war. That's all Bazoum. Bazoum, as far as I know, he's not rotting away in a cell with rats and mice. He's a president. People, the transitional government, the mayor, they treat him with respect in his palace with his wife. But these European Union countries, there have been African heads of state who were imprisoned, who suffered until death, and they never lifted a finger because they didn't have uranium to give them for free. Now, saying he's a key partner, Gilles, what surprises you? The good little President Bazoum, who spends his time doing that, praising the terrorists, saying they're nice guys, well-armed, more than our own army. Good old Bazoum, who says that, as he reminded us, France buys our uranium out of pity. He probably even had to mobilize the Nigerian people to organize marches in support of Areva, which buys uranium out of pity. And at what price does it buy it? Out of pity. So, what we're witnessing today is that everyone knows this whole democracy story is nonsense. It's a scam, it's a fraud, especially when it comes to black people. As long as black people are caught up in this nonsense, when we talk about democracy, you'll still see, I'm sure there are still a few jokers, remnants from the old colonized systems who will say, that's good, we're going to free Bazoum. I believe that today, no matter what people say, the transitional government, President Tiani and his team, are more concerned about President Bazoum's health and well-being than the people from the European Union sitting over there in Brussels trying to exploit the whole planet. As for them, constitutional order, when they went around in Romania to cancel an election to put whoever they wanted in power, was there any constitutional order then? In the Czech Republic right now, there's an election coming up in Hungary. Suddenly, because Viktor Orban doesn't toe the line, in front of the great thief in Brussels who buys medicine by SMS for 32 billion euros, since Viktor Orban doesn't toe the line, and above all, he exposes the theft by the European Union. Suddenly, they found an opponent who has so much money. That means they want to divert it. So when these people come to your country, they talk to you about democracy, human rights, constitutional order, but you should send them to hell. You should send them to hell.
The European Union has already imposed sanctions, mainly economic ones. Development aid has been frozen since 2023. Quite obviously, one must ask exactly what kind of diplomatic leverage does the European institution truly still possess at this stage? Furthermore, is it still influential enough within the nation of Niger to actually dare to take any significant action or intervene in any way at all?
The overall influence of Western nations throughout the entire AES, and more generally across the African population, has experienced a very substantial and noticeable decline over the course of the most recent years. Niger is no exception. This decline in influence is evident there as well. The influence of the European Union has diminished even more sharply in the AES region. But what needs to be said simply is that I actually think the Westerners have several tricks up their sleeve. In reality, they have a plan that they are gradually putting into action. I think the European Union did not think that Niger would survive, right? All these sanctions that have already been imposed. If you remember, for example, the day after President Bazoum was overthrown, the border between Benin and Niger was closed. And I would like to point out that this border was closed without any warning, none at all. That is to say, I was in Niamey. That is to say, normally in any situation, in such circumstances, when measures like these have to be taken, you still need to consider whether exceptions should be made. Let me give you an example. Everything was blocked. Essential goods, food products, everything was blocked. And that even included medicines. That is to say, in Niamey at the time, even dialysis patients, diabetics, and people living with chronic illnesses could no longer access their medications because those medicines specifically had to pass through that border. And only God knows how many people died in Nigeria at that time, precisely because of the closure of that border. So I think that after that, there was a whole range of economic sanctions. You mentioned the freezing of European aid. There were also targeted sanctions against the actors involved in the restructuring. And as you generally know, targeted sanctions usually mean restrictions. On travel is the freezing of assets, etc. Niger survived all of this. And now, since the security pressure added to all this economic pressure, etc., did not work, now it's necessary to move to another level. But I would like to remind you that regarding the European aid in question, Niger examined this issue. And it was a deliberate decision by the Nigerian authorities to get rid of certain types of aid from the European Union, because this aid was not provided in the way it should have been. For example, I would like to point out a very well-known NGO in the Sahel called ECAP Sahel, their officially declared primary objective was to actively combat the spread of terrorism and to provide essential logistical support to the Nigerian armed forces. However, this NGO was apprehended in the very act of secretly colluding with those same terrorists. So the point that I am specifically trying to emphasize to you is that if today the European Union says in its resolution that aid to the most disadvantaged or the social assistance from European NGOs can no longer reach its destination, where it needs to go, but that's only fair because we've blocked them. We've now prevented them from going into the field and from being able to actually facilitate these acts of terrorism with, in fact, the sleeper cells they had already set up on the ground. So this is to clearly tell you that in reality, the only way today for the European Union to keep up the pressure is precisely through the media pressure that you know about. It's also a divide and conquer strategy because you know that many of President Bazoum's collaborators are abroad and are shuttling between Abidjan and Paris today. And it is these people, some of whom have even been stripped of their Nigerian nationality, that France and the European Union are now relying on to continue putting pressure on Niamey. But what's remarkable is that today, when you look at the regimes currently in power within the AES, the populations, including the stakeholders, are supporting their authorities.
All right. We will now move on to the second part of this program to analyze a bit the obsession with April 2nd and what could happen before or after this so-called fateful date. Your Excellencies, Didier Allot was explaining to us why the European Union is referring to the symbolic date of April 2nd. Well, now, what is going to happen? Is this a sign of imminent action? Can the European Union actually take concrete action on the ground?
Listen, whether it's April 2nd, 20th, 30th, or even 40th, it doesn't change anything.
40th, at least that doesn't exist.
Sorry?
40th of April, at least that doesn't exist.
Oh, you might find that one day. So April 2nd, the fateful date, that's the day Bazoum's mandate ends. So they waited, and as that date approaches, they're getting restless. That's why I say it's not Bazoum they're interested in, it's the uranium. Now, if April 2nd passes, what excuses will they come up with to keep demanding their uranium, their so-called uranium, because it's not really theirs?
But before April 2nd, can the European Union take action on the ground?
No. The European Union has always acted. You have to look at all the terrorist attacks that Niger has suffered. They attacked the airport in Niamey. They attacked the airport in Ottawa. And attacks happen every day. Do you think that just comes out of nowhere? No. It's their doing. So they've always acted. I think the people of Nigeria are well aware by now. Personally, I trust President Tiani, who seems to be very, very, very well informed. And Tiani must know right now what they're preparing, what they've gotten themselves into. And they're starting to take advantage of the threats. So they can't. And it became a bit obvious, I would say quite clearly, that Bazoum was Nigerian. How many Nigerians are there? 30, how many? 25 inhabitants, right? Inhabitants. No, for them you have to kill the 27 million Nigerians just to keep Bazoum. That's the problem. They don't ask the opinion of the 25 million. Do I prefer a president who is supported by his people, who is popular, than a democratically elected president who doesn't even have 14% popular support from his own people? What kind of scam is this? We want the support of the people, not the fantasies of so-called democratically elected leaders, where the president represents nothing. Every day people are out in the streets demanding his departure, and the more people want him to leave, the more he clings to power. He is looking for every possible war to get involved in, because they know that if a president starts a war, he can't leave and abandon the country in the middle of it. So we know all of this. We're not in 1960 anymore. Now, everything is transparent, everything is clear. They're getting unbelievable beatings from Iran. And to let off some steam, they say to themselves, well, let's go beat up a few more black people in the Sahel. That's all, there's nothing else. What are they going to do? Come and attack? The Nigerians have been prepared to be attacked for a long time. Every day they tell themselves, we could be attacked.
So if the European Union can't attack Didier, should we fear some kind of indirect support for destabilization, or is it just a communication posture or maybe an April Fool's joke? We're talking about 2 years.
No, but the European Parliament doesn't have any military power. The Parliament has political power. And I think that those who have used this political power, which is the European Union Parliament, very clearly, the one who has it in for Niger is France, Emmanuel Macron's France, to be very clear. In my personal opinion, I honestly believe that all of this is nothing more than a convenient excuse, which essentially means that from their specific perspective and point of view, it is simply a strategic way, as you can clearly see, to carefully establish the necessary conditions for a potential future intervention. There are factors that need to be taken into account. The resolution was sent to the African Union, ECOWAS, and so on. That is to say, the institutions they previously tried to use as tools in order to obtain the means to intervene militarily, but it didn't work. Recently, Mahmoud Déby was in France, and yet it was him. From the very beginning of the crisis, the first two interventions that France wanted to carry out, because even before talking about ECOWAS intervention, France had already, in the wake of Bazoum's overthrow, prepared interventions and had already amassed troops in N'Djamena. And it was the Russians and the Americans who provided the information. And we clearly remember that in Chad, President Mohammed Déby had refused to let his country serve as a rear base to attack Niger. Today, it's very clear that Mohammed Déby went to France, and just a few weeks later, the parliament passed this resolution. I'm not saying these events are directly connected, but in any case, from my perspective as an analyst, these are still warning signs that allow us to take a closer look at that side as well. I think, in reality, the authorities in Niger have already responded by summoning the head of the European Union mission delegation in Niamey to very clearly express their disapproval. As you mentioned, Niger was categorical with the representative of the European Union in Niamey to make it clear to her that this is what they call pure and simple interference. So I believe that as this program continues, we'll see how this decision by the European Union will only further distance, won't it, the regimes from the background?
Precisely, that's my next question. By demanding Bazoum's return, isn't the European Union ultimately definitively pushing Niger into the arms of Russia, Turkey, and China?
No, the European Union isn't putting anyone anywhere. Nigerians are mature people. They know where their interests lie. They don't even need anyone to put them anywhere after all. After more than 60 years of hardship, misery, and shameless criminal exploitation. They take your resources, give you nothing, and you die of hunger. They strut around in the poorest country Niger was gleefully ranked by those countries as the poorest country. That's actually why they were able to set up their so-called NGOs everywhere. Today, Niger simply wants to exploit its own resources, sell them to whomever it chooses, and allow its people to live. That's all. We don't need anyone. The countries of the European Union themselves, what situation are they in today? What situation are they in today? What do they have to offer anyone? They can't even help themselves. So I believe that Niger will not turn back because of a so-called European Union resolution. When you know who the European Union is, you know how it operates, you know how these elites oppress their own people. Because let's be clear, it's not just Africans they're oppressing. In Europe, they oppress their own population. Do you see the suffering in these countries? Have you seen how the farmers are mistreated, exploited, pressured? But those aren't Nigerians, those French, Belgian, and other farmers. They're not Nigerians, they're not Burkinabe, they're not Togolese. So it's an elite, a caste all enrolled in Jeffrey Epstein's elementary school, where cruelty is taught. They're mistreating their own population, and even that isn't enough for them. They come down hard on Africans and think they can keep exploiting people. Ad vitam aeternam. So that's not what's pushing Niger toward Russia. Since the 1960s, Russia has helped African countries gain their independence. And this cooperation continues today. It's not just today that the Russians have embassies in Africa. Here in Togo, the Russians even had an embassy. I can show you where it was. So we should let that go. Have you seen what's happening today? It's the same calculations they made with Iran. We're going to go break Iran, take the oil. Now they're in trouble. They're calling for help, saying, we need to come help. We need to do this and that. And Iran says the war is just beginning. Africans, we too, it's true. We don't have Iran's weapons, but we have Iran's determination. That's enough. Didier, is there alignment between Brussels and the regional capitals, or is the European Union acting on its own? Going it alone?
No, it's not about any kind of alignment. It's France that is manipulating the European Union. When you look at countries, it's countries like Denmark, Belgium, and others. I don't see
Where the
Sweden. Well, there you have it. So I think it's very clear that it's France that is manipulating the European Union in order to obtain something that looks like a legal basis in a world where everyone is now denouncing the total disregard for international law, as demonstrated by the United States, who completely interfere in sovereign countries, remove their presidents, and imprison them in their own country. So I think that France, for its part, wants to show that it is a bit more proper. And since it knows that on that front, it can't get a United Nations resolution, nor can it expect anything from ECOWAS or the African Union. So it is trying to see at the level of this parliament what it can obtain to serve as a basis. But I think it's really a lost cause, because April 2nd will come and absolutely nothing at all will happen in Niger.
If the second passes and nothing happens, what will be left of the European Union's credibility?
But it has no credibility. The European Union, it's not that it's only now, with this decision, that it won't achieve anything or that it will lose its credibility. For a long time now, France, the European Union, all of them, and even the United States have not been credible at all in the AES region, and increasingly so in Africa. So it's not just now that they've lost credibility.
Thank you so much, families, for listening and watching. I must sound like I'm repeating myself. The president himself said, France do not need Niger. Niger need France. What do they want now? Why do they want the president, General Abdurrahmani Tiani, to release the ex-president, whereby investigation is still going on? Over 10 years, the citizens have been suffering terrorists, attacks on them, kidnapping and all. And you will hear from this debate that sometimes when they arrest the terrorists, this president, this same president, ex-president, that the European Union want them to release because of human rights, will tell them to let the terrorists go away. Please listen to more if you are still here. Thank you for your time. I'll be back.
The United States and the European Union coming back to these countries with cooperation projects. We talked about it last time.
It's different from
Credibility. It's because today the credibility of the European Union is zero. Everyone wants to leave. Spain wants to leave. Hungary wants to leave. Everyone wants to leave. And they want to buy themselves some cheap credibility at the expense of Africans. Otherwise, who still wants to be in this so-called European Union? Everyone wants to leave, Gilles. You have to keep up with the news. Spain wants to leave Hungary. Let's not even talk about it. The Czech Republic.
For now, they haven't left.
But they will leave. You have to look at all the commotion around it. Even the Germans, they've had enough. Not so fall, as they say in German.
However, then the Brexit referendum took place.
Because at the head of the European Union, there is a gang of 2 or 3 people who terrorize all the others. There is no European Union anymore. There is a gang of 2 or 3 guys at the head of the European Union who terrorize both Europeans and Africans. Everyone wants to leave, Jill. You have to keep up with the news. Everyone wants to leave. So we buy ourselves credibility by showing off at the expense of black people. That's it.
So, let's draw your conclusions from the last part of this show. Didier, what would happen in the event of an attempt to restore Bazoum to power by force?
No, I don't even think that. The enemies of Niger and Iran are going to take that risk. Because historical experience has shown us that deep down in their souls, people simply like to start wars without knowing how they will end. The ambassador gave the example of Iran earlier. Nothing can shake the people who have the will, who are united, who are determined. You can replay, you can revisit your archives. You can see how at the airbase the people of Niger came out, how the people of Niger acted. Let me remind you that it was not President Tiani and his colleagues from the CNSP who drove out the French. It's important to clarify that. It was the people of Niger. Remember how these people came out as one. They camped in front of the Foreign Army's headquarters at the airbase. I was in Niamey. I saw it. And it wasn't even far from my home. So I saw all of this. After seeing all this, I trust these people. And I know that even if there is an intervention to try to restore President Bazoum, it will have consequences that will be very, very costly, including for France and the European Union. This
option of intervention to restore him is null and void. If they do it, they are capable of doing it. In fact, it means they're looking for a way to kill Bazoum. Because with Bazoum, the issue is that he will be put on trial. And he will speak. And what he will say will disgrace France forever. They might now look for a pretext, launch an operation in which Bazoum will die, and then claim that it was the CNSP who killed him. The CNSP, they know that Bazoum is their brother. They have no intention, no reason, no interest in killing him. The proof is he is still there. But they are capable of organizing something like that so that Bazoum is no longer around. Because when Bazoum is put on trial, if he is tried, he will say things, my friend. It will be worse than what we've heard from Damiba in Burkina. He will say things. The connections with the terrorists, the financing of the terrorists, the theft, the uranium trap, and many other managed riches. But already it's the whole Élysée establishment that will go down. So today they could stage something or a false flag operation, and Bazoum is killed. But I am sure that the military in power in Niamey will do everything they want, everything they can to ensure Bazoum's safety, 1000%. There you have it.
For you, that's unlikely. But can't institutions in regions like ECOWAS, for example, take the European Union's document? Because for now, the voice of the EU is being heard, but they can't brandish this document and try to take new action. Niger?
No, but the question that I'm asking myself in this matter is this really something the European Parliament should be dealing with? Is Bazoum European? Is Niger a European country?
They consider him a friend of the European Union.
No, but tell me, is ECOWAS actually functioning as a political instrument for the European Union to use?
No, but I would like to explain the reason.
Basically,
Bazoum is a friend of the European
Union. ECOWAS is a puppet of the European Union. Let's be clear about that.
I completely agree with you. But in principle, is that really how things should be?
Have you ever seen 16 Europeans do that in Africa? What should have been done?
As for me,
I think we also need to question the concept of friendship. Because between heads of state, are we talking about law about equality, or about friendship?
No, but here friendship has a reason. It's the country's resources that the friend is selling off. So that's it. That's the basis on which they talk about friendship. It's not because of humanitarianism. It's not because Bazoum has a conscience. When it comes to good governance, when it comes to sovereignty over a country's resources, no. And don't forget that when Europeans start to praise, defend, or overrate an African leader, you should know right away that this leader stopped serving the interests of his country a long time ago.
That is truly and absolutely remarkable and incredible. That's
what tells me a president friend.
You see, that's the problem. It's only with Africans that there's this whole friend thing. I said no. He parades all that. He was saying the other day, late, that he was talking about friendship. That's it. It shows people the friendship, the loyalty between the people. But your peoples have no friendship. It's just the two of you. You go in, eat caviar, and drink champagne. No Chadian arrives in France and is received as a friend. And no French person goes to N'Djamena to be received as a friend. It's friendship between two individuals. And it's in the name of that friendship that they suffocate and kill millions of citizens from those countries. There is no friendship in politics. Bazoum must calculate, or any other head of state must calculate, what his country gains. You can't be promised friendship, and in exchange for that friendship, you give all the riches of your country to another people who live comfortably, who live in abundance, while you, your best people, die, all in the name of friendship. What is this so-called friendship? Wasn't Bokassa a friend of Giscard d'Estaing? Were there any better friends than those two? You saw how that ended, poor Bokassa. I could give you countless examples of such friendships. When a French head of state tells an African president that he is his friend, it's like a python getting ready to swallow a little mouse. That's what friendship is. Africans should just let that go. Do the French spend their time living off friendship among themselves?
What needs to be said, I'd also like to add something, is that there have been coups d'etat in several countries in Africa during the same period. But what is the difference between the coup d'etat, if you will, in Gabon, in Guinea, that were orchestrated, and the changes of power we've seen in the AES countries?
I can even add Guinea-Bissau to that.
Exactly. But what is the difference? But the difference is simply that in certain countries, especially the AES countries, there were soldiers who decided to take responsibility and chose to side with their people, meaning the right side, which is not working for the interests of imperialism. Whereas when you look at Gabon and Guinea, which we mentioned, you can clearly see that over there. They are not harassed in the same way, simply because those people have not to disrupt, you see, the functioning of the country. They did not disrupt, they did not prevent France and the West from continuing to have access to the resources of those countries. That's the whole difference. There is no difference between what happened in those two countries and what happened in the AES.
Gilles, remember that all our countries are like safes, full of riches. The idea of the colonial power is to find out who to entrust with the keys to the safe, who will sit on the safe with the keys, and when the colonial power comes, they open it, take what they want, and leave. That's all there is to it. So he gave the example of coup d'etat. I'm not going to go back over that. Even first or second grade children understand that. You can explain it to them. A coup d'etat in Guinea, here's what happened. A coup d'etat in Mali, here's what happens. Everyone understands that. It's so easy to understand that I just can't get how there are people, Africans, black people, who call themselves friends of the colonizers and still don't get it. I wanted to point something out. People are talking about what will happen before April 1st, whether they're going to come and attack. But why do you think the Sahel countries have already been warned? Why does President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, who is also the acting president of the AES, always talk about a black winter? They've been warned. They're waiting for them. You know what makes me feel sorry? It's the poor souls who don't even know that danger is lurking. Because they tell themselves, the whites will come, they'll use our territories, they'll attack the countries of the AES, and then that's it. But they just need to take a look at what's happening in Iran. The countries of the Persian Gulf, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Dubai, their showcases, those countries, they're the countries of happiness. They had peace, they had money, they had the good life. They never believed that one day the bourgeois in Arabia or the bourgeois in Ifa in Dubai would burn. So those who are sitting at home, they're doing the math, telling themselves they're going to help destroy the countries of the Sahel. I tell them to take a good look at the movie that's currently playing out in the Gulf countries and to see who is suffering the most. To see who is suffering the most, it's not the United States that is suffering the most. It's the poor Arabs who were naive enough to believe that America is a superpower and that if America protects you, not even God can do anything against you. My friend, if America protects you, you don't even need God. Any thug who comes along can wipe you out. And they are being wiped out. So I would like that in the West African sub-region, which is currently threatened by the most serious unrest, that Africans, our leaders, understand that a disaster cannot happen in the Sahel without affecting the other countries. And that we come together. If we do like the Arabs and divide ourselves, there will be destruction. Iran doesn't care.
So, to bring this opening segment to a formal conclusion, Didier, I would like to ask if you believe there is a viable third way forward, the problematic return of Bazoum to power, and the total and definitive diplomatic break with Europe regarding the AES countries?
To be perfectly honest, I really do not understand why you are still talking about the prospect of President Bazoum returning to his office. From my own personal perspective, I truly believe that is simply not a realistic possibility that we should even be considering at this stage. Because Bazoum cannot return to power for the simple reason that today the country has made its choice. And the people of the AES have also made their choice. And you've seen the dynamic in which these countries are now engaged and the path they are now following. So a military intervention to try to, in any case in quotes, as a facade, trying to restore Bazoum could only end with the death of President Bazoum. So I don't see how someone who is dead could come back to lead the country. So that possibility does not exist. But at the same time, what needs to be said is that yes, indeed, if you're talking about a third way, the third way or the second, is that indeed this behavior or this stance by the West will contribute to deepening the divide between the AES countries. And them, simply put, these countries have never said that they do not want to cooperate with a particular group of powers. No, these countries have never said that. These countries want to cooperate, but they demand respect and cooperation on an equal footing, especially since the resources are here with us. And I remember President Mamadou Tanja. We were at the Gawe Hotel and President Sarkozy came. I think first, before President Sarkozy arrived, I believe Sarkozy had just come to power. And he invited President Mamadou Tanja to come to France so they could talk about uranium. President Mamadou Tanja's answer was no. First of all, if we consider protocol diplomatically, I am your elder. You have just come to power, so if anyone should go to the other, it should be you who comes to me first. Moreover, I am your senior, that's one. Secondly, the uranium you need, the uranium is in my country. It's me, the uranium belongs to me, meaning it belongs to my country. So the market is here. If you need to buy a product, you have to go where it's sold. Uranium is sold in Niger, so if you need uranium, you come to see me. And that is exactly how President Sarkozy was compelled to travel to visit him personally in Niger, so that he would finally be able to discuss the future of this uranium supply. So I think what the AES countries and Niger simply want is to trade, they want to exchange, they want to cooperate with the European Union, France, all these people. But they want all of this to happen in a much more regulated framework, one that also guarantees the interests of their own countries. And then you'll see that right after the creation of the AES, it seemed, we had the impression, and I'll end with this, we had the impression that the AES countries were distancing themselves. But in reality, if you look at recent times, more and more cooperation agreements are being signed with the United States.
All right, thank you. That's well understood. Your point of view? Are we there yet? Yes, almost. It's time now for a break for a new edition of the news on your channel. We'll be back in 10 minutes for the next part of New World Forum.
Thank you so much, families, once again for listening up to this stage. I truly appreciate your time. Once again, please like the video and share it if possible. If you have taken anything from this video, let us know under the comment section because, a lot of us will also learn from you. You don't have to wait for the next, for the part two. I've added it to this part because this is the time that many people call in to share their opinions, ask questions, and also they joke and play around as well. So watch them once again in the part two and listen to the questions and opinions shared across concerning this matter. I'll be back.
The European Union wants to bring Mohammed Bazoum back to power before April 2nd in Niger. This is only the will of the European Union. The topic is at the heart of this week's forum. Joining us on the set is Didier Nouridine Alou, journalist and CEO of Africa Dev, and Sogoyu Kegewe, former ambassador and journalist. Thank you for staying with us for the second part, which we are sharing with our viewers. Since they are invited to contribute to this program via WhatsApp at 228 96 08 43 43 or directly on the social networks that broadcast us. We are on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. You can comment on this program whether you agree with us or not. I would like to start with Begedou from Michine Tove, the village of the President of the Republic of Togo. Hello, New World TV. Hello to everyone on the set. I would simply like to offer a word of encouragement to the elders. My father's name is Gayu Keju, and at home we often say it's the man who gets insulted, not the stone. May he continue to enlighten us with his wisdom. Have a great show, Bedu, but I hadn't.
Thank you.
Commitment to learn to respond better next time. Hello, the African channel that speaks to Africa and the rest of the world. What is God, Jose? From Abidjan, we don't beat around the bush. France wants all of Niger's uranium at a low price before April 2nd, 2020. Well, happy Sunday to you. On this uranium issue, in the end, can't Niger just call France and apply the international price so that this matter can be resolved?
No, but as I was saying earlier, Niger has not refused to cooperate, it's France. Moreover, I would like to remind once again that when President Bazoum was overthrown regarding Orano, the new authorities never expelled the operators, that is the French director of Orano, on site. No, that was never the issue. We just said that we are going to renegotiate the contract because everyone knows that uranium was being sold on the international market at around 115,000 CFA francs per kilo, while as of July 26, 2023, France was buying this uranium for less than 50,000 francs, specifically at 45,000. So things need to be adjusted so that Niger can properly benefit from its uranium. And it is this decision by the new authorities in Niger that led the management of Orano to decide to shut down the mine and leave. Well, but there is still a way out that is starting to take shape. Since President Tiani has said that the uranium, which had already been produced on site at the mining site before July 23rd, that this uranium, Niger is willing to send it to France, including covering the transportation costs. But everything that was produced after that does not belong to Orano. I think that's a sign of openness.
So what's the problem? We say it every day, but you don't believe us. Is it that in Mali and Burkina and Niger, apart from telling the military bases to leave, from an economic exchange perspective, they have never done anything against France? It was up to France to come back to the table to renegotiate everything on a new basis, and then life goes on together. But I'm telling you, the idea of negotiating with black people over the price of their goods, that's what they don't understand over there. How can a black person demand a fair price for his goods? And as Bazoum said, they're already doing them an honor by taking their goods. That's it, that's all. All it takes is to renegotiate. No one drove them out, France as far as I know. We told the military bases, leave, because since you've been here, apart from the 19 civilians you burned in a wedding convoy, you've never shown a single terrorist that you've taken down. And yet the terrorists keep killing our people and our soldiers. Other than that, there's nothing, so go back home. But cooperation continues. But negotiating as equals with black people. But he can't accept that. The whole problem is over there. I don't know if people in Brussels are more aware of this state of affairs. So,
Or perhaps as a different choice. To help illustrate this point further, I'll give a very quick and simple little example. Right now, here we are in New World. and sometimes the box suddenly changes its direction. What do? Do you decide to leave, or do you wait to meet the new director, introduce yourself, explain the work you do, present your contract? It's up to him to look it over and say, all right, go about your business, or to say, okay, I'm changing this or that, and then you adapt. That's how it works. At the very first change, you don't just pack up your things and leave and then walk away. That's not how it's done. So that's exactly what France did with uranium. They should have waited, met with the country's new sovereign authorities, and engaged in discussions with them to see how the collaboration could continue. That's what this is about. I
don't know why you brought up that example under the name New World. You could have said Sogoyu Company. Oh.
No, but please listen to me for a second. It is really just, these are not actually curses at all. They are simply meant to be examples. It is just a way to illustrate the point.
I won't say any more. Hello, dear friends. The European Union needs to understand that Niger is not part of Europe. Why didn't this European Union ask Trump to free the Venezuelan president and his wife? Africa is not their granary. The war that Trump started in Iran, doesn't that concern the European Union? Let Africans solve their own problems. It's Garba who wrote to us from Benin. Let's continue with the viewers. Hello, everyone on the set. Every Sunday, we look forward to drinking in the elixir of our show. We sincerely hope that your guests can train the next generation. Bazoum has always been under the influence of France. The Malians have not forgotten Bazoum, who was present alongside the rebels during the signing of the Mopti peace agreements.
Yes, that needs to be pointed out. It needs to be pointed out because under President Bazoum's leadership, things were far from smooth for Mali. President Bazoum often hurled insults at them each time he sided with France and insulted the struggle that was taking place in Mali. And it should also be noted that for all the coups that have taken place, at least in Niger, President Bazoum, a member of the CNSP, I believe he was, a member of the PNDS, which is the party of President Bazoum and President Mamadou Soufou, the PNDS. That's it. So it should be remembered that throughout this whole period, President Bazoum, as a political figure, had always applauded the coups that took place in Niger. The coup against President Maman Ousmane, who was the first democratically elected president of Niger, Bazoum applauded it. The coup against Mr. Barre,
Manasara,
Bazoum applauded it. The coup against Mamadou Tanja, Bazoum applauded it. And moreover, in an open letter that circulated this week, the brother of President M. Barre Mainasara reminded him of this, which is to say, since he himself was used to it, he got Nigerians used to coming and applauding coup d'etat. In these circumstances, it's a bit awkward. We don't know whether we should support him or just leave him to his situation. So when you act, when you are a political figure, the actions you take today can come back to you in the future.
This is Mohammed Mbarakou, who I sent this message. It was written from Bamako. Hello, Gilles, and to your truth fighters, I must say that last week's show was truly very enlightening. I want to use your platform to call on the leader of the AES to set up a historic committee who will understand Dr. Foley Ekwe to create a history curriculum for our schools and universities. I believe that history is a major component in mental decolonization. Thank you for your constant commitment, and may God be with you. This is Samson Kambu, proud AES citizen in Canada. It seems to me that Mali is in the process of redoing its school curriculum. Already know...
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's not just Mali.
Burkina too.
It also includes Burkina Faso and Niger as well. This is research and work that is being done in the lab.
Our enslavement is being renewed through school curricula. That's where we renew our enslavement constantly. So ever since we've been singing about our ancestors, the goals, how do you expect things to change? Hello, Nivan. It's really ridiculous for the European Union. Niger is doing very well by keeping Bazoum in detention. He can be released after the end of his term. African leaders need to wake up and work in the interest of their people. If the European Union is getting agitated, it's because Bazoum was working solely in the interest of the EU. Now, the people of Niger can benefit from cheaper gas and cement. The EU doesn't like that. Black people aren't allowed to be happy. It's a shame. That's the case with Karatomdi in the name of Togo.
It should be noted the price of cement has been cut in half in Niger, and this is the work of President General Tiani. Because cement, which used to cost 110,000 or 115,000 in Niger, is now at 50,000 francs per ton.
You asked a great question. Why didn't the European Union demand the return to power of Ali Bongo in Gabon, Alpha Condé in Guinea, Ami, or even Roch Christian Kabore in Burkina Faso?
There is no uranium.
Because today the European Union is being held by the neck. Look closely at what's happening. Until American President Trump suggested lifting the sanctions on Russian oil, that makes the Europeans sick. They're all completely thrown off balance. Because otherwise they have no other solution. So if on top of that you want Niger's uranium to slip through their fingers, it's as if you were hanging them. But Alpha Condé didn't have uranium. Ali Bongo, no uranium, nothing.
Hello, Papa Sogoyo Kegewe, Sogoyo Koku Kegewe, and Didier Nouridi Nalu, as well as the journalist Gilles Mawe Nambuko. The European Union wants to bring Bazoum back to power? Well, they should bring back the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad to power first. Bazoum is the past. He must be tried. He's just an ordinary citizen now. Let's forget about the Bazoum affair. It's Mr. Koto with a Beninese flavor since Boki. It's in the north of Côte d'Ivoire. Hello to the forum and to you, Gilles. Mr. Nouridi is not making a stopover. He has no other choice but to act this way, since a dog never changes the way it sits. That's a Kabye proverb he's quoting. I no longer risk asking how it's pronounced in Kabye. The Europeans couldn't care less.
That proverb, that's not Kabye. I hear it too.
He wants to attribute a proverb to you.
I hear that, but it must come from other cultures.
The Europeans couldn't care less. Without Bazoum's file, it's uranium that's at stake. But since they can't intervene directly, they need an alibi. Otherwise, how can you understand that while there is bombing in the Middle East, a president of one country gets up to go capture another president to put him on trial, and those people don't bat an eye, don't say a single word? And it's in the poorest country in the world, located in the middle of the desert, where they supposedly have no interest, according to what they say, that they want to come and establish constitutional order. It's really the pot calling the kettle black. Patrice from Puy Bamako is calling for the establishment of constitutional order, in any case, the return to power of the Ayatollah. Yes.
But why not? Here, they assassinate the Ayatollah and then everyone applauds. Can you imagine?
Really?
Today, what did they want? For us to assassinate Bazoum. But we're Africans, we have a heart.
We have a heart. They would have preferred that we kill him. You killed Kamini, you applauded. There you go. There you go. The problem in a way is cultural. It's not normal.
But well, there are some, you see, who add to this way of seeing things. They support the works of Ayatollah. They say he's a dictator who assassinates. It's kind of the
Teeth. All of that. It's really their way. You have to observe them from the beginning and look at the following years. All the crises, all the bombings that have happened. But it's always the same arguments. The same narratives, the talking points, the communication elements that are put forward. Everyone knows that this crisis has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with it. And then there are statistics that speak volumes. If you like Iranian women, they're shouting everywhere to say that they're oppressed, this and that. But go look at the numbers. Among the best mathematicians in the world, the best engineers in the world, are Iranian women. But they say there's no democracy, that this model needs to be broken and democracy installed their way. Why do Westerners and Americans always think about the political system and democracy? They see it as if it's the universal model that everyone must put into practice. Why?
Is that really the case?
Today, the continent with the most dictatorships in the world is Europe. It's Europe that is now the victim of dictatorship. There isn't even freedom of speech. Wait, what did Guy Vance say in Munich? No, wait.
You're overreacting.
No. What did Guy Vance, the African vice president, say to the Europeans in Munich? Do you at least remember? It's them who are the fiercest dictators in Europe today. I'm not naming them, you know who they are. I don't know, they're fierce dictators.
How would you define a dictatorship exactly?
When they say there's a dictator, ask them the question. In what way is Yatola a dictator, someone who is loved by his people? Because they killed, they saw what the Iranian people did, and they pushed naivety to the limit. To the point of believing that, well, if you kill Yatola, the Iranians will come out to applaud the Americans. How can anyone be so naive?
Well.
Yet you have the best intelligence services. They don't tell you what I go through on the ground.
There are many of them listening to us. The European interrogators, it's a dictatorship in your country, tell me.
Well, no, but the dictator, to answer your specific question, the dictator, from the typical Western perspective and political point of view, the dictator, when they call someone a dictator, it's the one who simply doesn't guarantee or provide any assurance.
Their interest.
That's what they call a dictator. But as long as you can guarantee the interests of the West, you're the good guy.
Wait, the monarchies, you're the best. The Gulf monarchies, are they democratic? But that's where everyone goes to feast.
China.
They go there to feast, they lick their chops like hungry dogs in the Gulf countries. Where is there a democracy over there? So it is time to stop these games.
Dear Jerusalem, let me tell you something. You know, I have a lot of friends among the military in Niger. I even had some neighbors who would leave, who are soldiers, who would go to the front, some for a month, others for 2 months. And when they come back to the neighborhood, when you talk with some of them, they tell you, I'm speaking from first-hand experience. Several of them confided that they carried out sweep operations and captured some terrorists. They tied them up, kept them with them to bring them back to the capital. But the order came from the presidential palace to release them, yet they were terrorists. All of this happened under Bazoum.
Well, that's not even up for debate anymore. Do you remember? And yet, Mr. Didier, do you remember the General Modi? He's now a minister.
Minister of Defense.
He's Minister of Defense.
Yes, he's number 2.
Regime. Can you imagine General Modi goes to Mali? Just to Mali to meet Asselineau Goïta. Upon his return to Niamey the following day, a French general landed and Modi was dismissed.
Quite.
Anyway.
That's correct.
Anyway. Hello, the host is Arthur Ouedraogo from Hamburg, Germany. My greetings to you, Gilles, to Didier, Nuruddin, and not forgetting Papa Sogoyu. Thank you again for this second Mass this Sunday related to the theme. About today's forum, to be honest, I am very shocked but not surprised because the European Union is playing one of its last cards to reactivate the trap of resources, the plundering of the resources of the Sahel states. But it's a lost cause given the determination of the people and their leaders. What keeps nagging at my mind is why the European Union, after having renewed its diplomatic relations with the AES in recent weeks, is now bringing up the Bazoum case again. Let the European Union first go and free President Nicolas Maduro. To conclude, I think Bazoum remains and continues to be a danger for the Westerners, which is why by April 2nd, Bazoum must be rendered incapable of causing harm. All right. Okay, Sunday, Sean Zontai. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Hi, Gilles. I've been watching you since the beginning of this forum up to today. I'm a fan of this show. I greet my big brother Sogoyu and Mr. Anani Suso. Stay strong. Who wrote to us? It's from Mali in any case. It's Mohammed Sonta. Thank you for following us from Bamako. Hello to the distinguished gentlemen who make up the panel of the Sunday Forum. All my regards and fraternal greetings from Mexico. This is Walker, Ndangamu, Kuma, Bola, Tibe. Thank you very much for this awakening of African consciousness that you tirelessly promote. May our ancestors always truly protect you. The imperialist powers consider us as less than nothing. With their double standards, the United States and Israel are in the process of attacking Iran, killing the population. That doesn't bother them at all. The only person who matters more to them is Bazoum, truly. We so wish to see the 3 Sahelian polar stars even provide us with a nuclear warhead to command respect and also fear. Long live Niger, long live the AES, long live a free and sovereign Africa, a free Africa where we will overcome death. Walke Gamukuba Bola Tibe. Yes, but it's true. It's clear that when you don't possess the nuclear soul, Westerners don't respect you.
No, now, even if you don't have a nuclear soul, there are people who are willing to sell or give you away. Kim Jong-un even wants to give some to the Iranians. So you just need to have good relationships, that's all.
That's it? And you can put yourself under someone's umbrella.
Exactly, you get under a serious umbrella and they leave you alone.
Thank you so much, families, for listening up to this stage. I'm shocked and I'm surprised because it was just last month that Americans wanted to come back to the Sahel. They want to be signing agreement and all. The Europeans, they are already there building bridges, water, helping in any way that they can. But at the back of their mind, they have their own agenda. As we know, many of you under these comment sessions, when I share videos like that, a strong comment like, don't do it because you can't trust them. And this is what is happening right now in front of us. So if they want to come back, why are they dictating when they know that the AES said they don't want any country or anyone to dictate to them? Because what they are doing is saving their countries. They want their own sovereignty, independent that they can say and do what they want, protect their own citizens, provide for themselves, enough the poverty, enough people not sleeping at night. I remember elderly people going out protesting that now they can sleep, before they couldn't. And so they are protesting against external forces and the destabilizers.
Hello, Gilles. Hello to everyone on the set. Today, it's jokers who are running the world. Unfortunately, we can't understand how these actors operate on the stage of dark political comedy without being a bad puppet ourselves. However, this resolution from the European Parliament will vindicate the perpetrators of the coups in the 70s and 80s who outright mock their predecessors. Nevertheless, we are not going to glorify crime for our infamous Bazoum. Kokil would certainly deserve it as a traitor to the Nigerian nation.
This is Maglibe Machatom from Sanda Afo.
Have a good show.
Sanda Afo, meaning that for people who applauded the assassination of Khamenei, it's outrageous that they are now demanding Bazoum's release. In other words, it's as if they were saying to President Tiani, you did wrong not to kill him. So,
hello, Nino Atili. My greetings, Fraternel Lavogil, to our two great panelists, Papa Sogoyo and Nuruddin, regarding the European Union Declaration. It's about finding a way to kill Bazoum. Otherwise, they're saying that Bazoum is their ally, but not an ally of Niger. During the coup d'etat on June 26th in Niger, we were the first Nigerians to return to the country. Still following the same logic, on April 1st, we will be in Niamey. Abdul Razak, Nigerian, resident in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai.
So there you have it, the message is clear.
A message from Niger, precisely. This is Paul Tapsoba. No, he's writing to us from Burkina Faso. So, hello Nihon TV. Hello to the distinguished debaters. Hello to you, Mr. Gilles. Many thanks to the panelists for their foresight and clarity. Europe is facing many financial difficulties after COVID. There's Ukraine, and now on top of that, the effects of the aggression in Iran. So Europe is fighting for its survival, but like Iran, Africa is waiting for them. May God protect our presidents, may God protect our states and our people. Long live the New World Forum. This is Paul Tapsoba from the land of upright men. I'd also like to take this opportunity to greet Felipe Ada, our friend who is there in Ouagadougou from Burkina Faso. Thank you for everything you do for Burkina Faso. This is Felipe Anda. He mentioned the situation in Iran and the economic repercussions and impacts of this war. In the end, the massive oil crisis and the severe economic crisis resulting from the blockade, particularly of the Strait of Hormuz, is it possible that this could cause this war to end much sooner than anyone had originally expected?
Who is going to stop the war? Those who started the war don't have the power to stop it.
What do you mean?
Israel and the United States don't have the power to stop the war. Iran said no, we haven't even started yet. Now is when the appetite comes. The appetite for war, it's now that the Iranians are starting to develop a taste for war. That means
that even if the United States withdraws the aircraft carrier today, Iran will keep on bombing.
They will keep on bombing. Because Iran hasn't picked a fight with anyone. They're at home, living as they please, and they haven't caused trouble for anyone. But every day people talk about nuclear programs, and as we mentioned earlier, about dictatorship. You see, when you look at certain Western media, you see two little shrews saying, we're going to go liberate Iranian women. But it's the Iranian women who should come liberate you because you're illiterate. Over there, they're all engineers. Iran trains 233,000 high-level scientists every year. And among them, they have the highest percentage of women scientists. More than France, more than the United States, more than any of your countries. And you say you're going to liberate Iranian women. No. They should come liberate you because the first prison for a human being is ignorance. You are in ignorance. We need to send Iranian women to liberate you. Yes.
But
yep.
Does the nation of Iran possess the legal right to continue its bombing operations if the aggressor forces withdraw their aircraft carriers?
Everything that you can see surrounding this entire area of conflict is what we refer to as Dubai, a place which has unfortunately ceased to be functional in the world we live in today. For Dubai,
it is sad. It is just really sad.
You know very well what Dubai represents for businessmen, including for the United States. So today, Dubai has taken some serious hits, and the airport isn't even operational at the moment. So I believe that the United States and Israel did not have the same objectives when they started the war. Israel's objective was to expand its territory. For the United States,
they're acting on the ground, leaving Iran to me.
Yes, absolutely. In what way? Absolutely, that's their way of keeping themselves safe. They want to do the
bidding, Israel. And the only one who can oppose Israel's bidding is Iran.
Exactly. So, because of that, I believe the Americans have not properly assessed Iran's ability to defend itself. What is happening today in the Strait of Hormuz, with the constant risk that this strait could be completely mined and rendered totally inoperable, for months and months, the United States did not anticipate this. So, it's Iran.
But shouldn't we fear something even worse under these circumstances? If Iran manages to hold off the American and Israeli aircraft carriers, won't Donald Trump be forced to do something? Like what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki or in Russia?
What, atomic bombs? But everyone has them now. Nagasaki and Hiroshima, that was easy.
That's nothing to laugh about.
No, I said Hiroshima and Nagasaki were easy because it went unpunished. He bombed Japan. The Japanese didn't do anything after that. But today, if they try to drop a nuclear bomb on Iran, don't think it's going to go the way it did with Japan. The Americans don't even want to hear about this war. Because a nuclear bomb doesn't just kill the president, it kills innocent people. The Americans don't want to hear about that. He's waging his war so that people forget a little about the Epstein scandal hanging over him. But not all Americans are involved with Epstein.
Hello New World TV, hello to the distinguished debaters and to Gilles, and many thanks to the hosts on the set for their insight. Didn't I, yes, already pass along Paul Tabsoba's message? I'm passing it to Ousmane now, Nawasi from Perere, or perhaps Benin, though I'm not entirely certain.
Perere, yes.
Since then, where?
Perere.
Ah, good, okay. Hello dear journalists of New World. The problem today is not Bazoum's return, but rather his death or getting him back from Tiani, because the Westerners are worried about the information Bazoum could provide, which could put an end to terrorism. But the end of terrorism means suffering for certain countries. This is Ousmane Nawasi from...
It's true that terrorism today is an industry that feeds some people. And unfortunately, these people have no interest in seeing terrorism completely eradicated. So from that point of view, yes, our friend is right.
Hello to everyone on the set and hats off to the insightfulness of the debaters. Didier and from the Baobab, Uncle Sagoyu, as is often said, the dog barks but the caravan moves on. The European Union nowadays seems to be lacking buzz on social media. While the United States and Israel are launching their war against Iran, we notice the almost total absence of this empty shell that has become a playground for pranksters in Europe, lost in its legendary delusion. I sense, true to its impulses, disconnected from reality just by the name. And the other wants to restore Bazoum to power. This curiously comes at the very moment when an American envoy recently visited the 3 AES capitals to renegotiate the return of American influence in the region. So we are eagerly awaiting them within the AES since their proxy, Uranium, failed to achieve their objectives. Some now seem to want to revive the ECOWAS standby force. The courage of Venice ventured directly onto the ground. History will then judge who was right and who was simply harboring illusions. Long live the US. This is not Mohammed Traore, a Malian living in the Douanezen region, who sent us this message. Dear awakened Africans, the European Union is once again pressing the Bazoum issue. It's certainly not a well-kept secret at all. It's no secret that if the new authorities had welcomed them by rolling out the grand red carpet following the events of the coup, we wouldn't be talking about him, about Bazoum. So on the other hand, let's not be surprised by another forced attempt. Among many others, let's take the example of their boss, Trump, who tends to disregard all international laws. These actions show the limits of their so-called international community. This European Union is the same one that during our elections in Africa validates votes tainted by theft and irregularities. Right in front of everyone, in full view and knowledge of all, Africa no longer needs people to lecture it. Thank you, that's a message we've received. From New York, now France. No, actually Mayotte. Hello everyone.
Mayotte is French.
Yes.
Why do you say Mayotte? Are you afraid you might get into trouble?
It's French, but it's from Mayotte. It's from Mayotte specifically. Hello everyone. European deputies are calling for the release of an individual who has been in police custody for almost 3 years. What could be more normal? It seems to me that in Africa, presidents have repeatedly called for Bazoum's release. France and Niger share a common history. And it's completely normal for French deputies to demand the release of the detained president. It's Mouban who is writing to us from Mayotte.
No, I don't agree with him. I'll tell you why. You know, it's true that even on the continent and even in Niger, there have been people who have called for President Bazoum's release, which is completely normal. Because when someone is in prison, it's only natural that others would speak up for them. And then he was a head of state. He has his supporters. But the question that arises is, what risk is involved in releasing President Bazoum? Because today, Niger has embarked on a path of reconstruction. Niger needs peace and calm to achieve this. All the signs show every day that if he's released, it will do more harm to the country than if he is kept under house arrest, as they say, and continues to be monitored. And to our knowledge, President Bazoum has access to his personal doctor. And his wife is not in detention. It was his wife who chose. And by the way, I want to take this opportunity to greet her. She is a good woman. She decided to stay with her husband rather than leave at the first sign of trouble. So she decided to stay with her husband. Otherwise, she is not in prison. She is not being held. She is not in detention. It was her own choice to stay with her husband.
She is a model woman.
In any case, she deserves to be congratulated for that. So now, if the CNSP authorities and the government of Niger determine that Bazoum no longer poses any risk at all, that his release is no longer a threat, I think no one will ask the authorities to keep him detained. It will happen quite naturally. So I think people need to wait, people need to be patient so that when things are fully and completely settled, when the time is absolutely most favorable and appropriate for his release, that is exactly when it will finally happen.
Hello Blato, thank you for your always insightful analysis on the liberation battles in Kohu. If you could explain how, the US Secretary of War declares thousands of kilometers from Tehran that the new supreme leader, Ayatollah Mujtaba Hamnai, has no legitimacy. Maybe then we'll understand better how members of the European Parliament in Brussels, 5,000 kilometers from Niamey, put the Bazoum case on their agenda and pass a resolution. All in all, it's a shortage of uranium in the nuclear centers. In Europe, they let the Iranians cut off their oil in the Persian Gulf, and we, Let's cut off uranium in the Sahel. Otherwise, Bazoum is the least of their concerns. Oil, uranium, and other resources, that's what it's really about. Thank you for your work. Greetings from Germany. This message is from Kles Baluki, France. Now, thank you, Jill. Hello to Nuridin, and not forgetting the elder Sogoyu Kegewe DSK. The European Union doesn't like Bazoum. It's more like the Middle East scenario. Any neighboring country that allows the US to attack will be wiped out. And it's not their people who die. It is Draman, believe it or not, who is sending us this message right now from the city of Paris.
Yeah, I need to add a word. Indeed, you saw in the Gulf countries, but Saudi Arabia, Qatar, it's true, Iran attacked them. But there were other attacks that happened just to turn them against Iran, to make them declare war on Iran. Fortunately, Turkey intervened in time to tell the Saudis, but this attack, it's not Iran. So they were being manipulated so that Arabs, Persians, Muslims would kill each other. And then the others are just sitting quietly on the side. That's also how they want to manipulate us black people here. And I am constantly shocked and outraged that there are leaders, people who call themselves heads of state, who don't understand this, that we kill each other for the interests of other peoples.
Hello everyone on the set. This message is to remind you that if the European Union is now interested in Bazoum, it's especially because it has just announced it has just strongly relaunched its nuclear program. So there is now an urgent need for uranium in Europe. Well, happy Sunday to everyone. Catherine, wife of a Togolese man in Belgium. Thank you, Mrs. Catherine. Good evening, everyone on the set. How are you, my brothers? My dear brothers, I sincerely tell you, my Africa pains me so much. A continent where anything goes. How does Europe allow itself to interfere in matters that are none of its business? These people are once again proving that Mr. Bazoum was there for business, not for the interests of the Nigerian people. Bakari Keita from the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Thank you very much and have a good day. We received a message from Italy. Have a good day. This is Abalo. Hello to everyone on the set. Hello, Gilles, Mr. Didier Noureddin, and His Excellency, I greet you. If we look at the situation in the two Guineas and Gabon, there have been coup d'etat, but the European Union did nothing. It's Niger that concerns them. They want Niger's uranium and oil. Social media and journalists are reacting, except for the elites in Africa who say nothing. It's concerning. We need a mobilization campaign. Some West African fighters to support the Sahel. Wishing you continued success in ball games for 1,000 years. Hello, Nomi or Amico, message from Burkina Faso. Now, there is but to taste. Barthélemy, hello, dear panelists, Gilles Didier and Papa Sourire. As for the infamous and evil resolution of the European High Council, it's nostalgia for Niger's uranium under the guise of something else. But rest assured, not a single rat will set foot in Niger for the sub-prefect Bazoum. In any case, there are already 6,000 AES soldiers stationed in Niamey waiting for them, ready and determined. Let them resolve the Maduro situation first, then leave Bazoum, who is at home in Niger. Thank you to Nihawa TV for this opportunity to share information. I searched in vain for the show titled One of the Causes of Bazoum's Downfall, a show where Papa Sogoyo predicted the downfall, which indeed happened. Help me find this show because I can no longer find it on YouTube. Have a great Sunday, my dear friends. Yamehogo Barthélemy from Ibrahim Traore. Absolutely. Thank you, my dear friend from Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. Message from Benin. Benin, which will soon be entering the election campaign. Hello to everyone on the set.
When are the elections over there?
April 12th.
The what?
The 12th of April.
Ah, that's soon.
Yes, very soon.
Let's wish them good luck.
In less than a month. The European Union wants to move the wars from Ukraine and Iran to West Africa, but God will not allow them to. Will the EU have the means to easily exploit Niger's uranium by imposing Bazoum? How will they transport the uranium? Regarding the Nigerians, I think that war will not come to Africa. Bazoum will not die. Not for now either. Everything that was hidden will be revealed. Thank you very much. Isaac Biao from Benin. Thank you, dear friend Biao. There are still many messages, a few more, and then we'll conclude. Hello, New World Forum. My name is Cabral from Côte d'Ivoire. Today's topic: the European Union wants to bring Mohammed Bazoum back to power. The Black Winter is now, while the United States of Israel faces off against Iran. And while Nicolas Maduro languishes in prison, the European Union also seems to want to make a name for itself in the wrong way. Can we really talk about respect for international law in the actions taken by these great powers? For us who stand for the self-determination of peoples, the answer is clear: no. More than ever, it is time for people to break free from their chains, because the next form of domination could be even harsher than that of the 20th century. As Ambassador Sogoyo reminded us, we may not have Iran's weapons, but we can at least have the same determination as the Iranian people. As Ernesto Che Guevara said, the only solution to social injustices is revolution by force of arms. Cabral from Côte d'Ivoire.
Regarding international law, I believe we need to be clear-sighted. The only international law we should respect is the one that guarantees our interests. Period. That's it. I am not going to respect international law just to serve the interests of Brussels. That's not right. It's those who align with our interests. That's what we should respect as international law. I have never seen Europeans respect a law that goes against their interests. If anyone has seen that, please refresh my memory.
Hello Gilles, hello to Didier, His Excellency the Ambassador. What could be is a threat to the members of the AES, knowing that Niger's uranium no longer benefits France and all the states of the European Union. Currently, the EU states regret not intervening militarily in Niger, because if the Americans can easily remove the presidents of other countries, then if Bazoum, who is one of France's best lackeys, if he is alive, they can rely on him to drive out the military in power and hand over power to someone else, a servant of France. Currently, the president must strengthen his army, his guard, and his intelligence service. Moreover, the Nigerian government must communicate about its actions, because we know because of power and money, black people are capable of doing so much harm too in order to inflate their pride. Thank you. Long live the US, long live Niger. Africa is not poor. It is the EU and France that rely on our presidents to make Africa poor. Josuetas Debako, Akwasi Togo. Lydie, we are coming to the end of this week's forum. A few minutes to wrap up. This EU resolution is an April Fool's joke in light of everything that's been said here. No return of Bazoum to power before April 2nd.
No, I absolutely do not believe in President Bazoum returning to office. It's a dream that cannot come true. But I would like to conclude by simply saying two things. To begin with, the first point to consider is that if we lived in a world where international law still held a significant degree of weight and value, this resolution from the European Union Parliament would primarily serve as a strategic tool to put much more diplomatic and media pressure on the authorities in Niamey. However, it is important to recognize that this resolution from the European Union Parliament has absolutely no legal or coercive power whatsoever in this situation. But since we live in a world where even those who teach democracy and the great principles, the cardinal fundamental principles of this democracy so lavishly promoted to Africans, even they, meaning these very authorities, do not respect international law at all, showing a complete disregard for the rules they claim to uphold. We saw it with the case of Maduro, and we are seeing it again now in Iran. And this is their custom, it's their habit. You know that the United States is accustomed to coming before the world and blatantly lying to the entire planet in order to go to war with countries based on lies and completely false reasons. Since this is the chaotic world that we live in today, I honestly wouldn't be at all surprised if France suddenly seized this opportunity. He took advantage of this newfound determination to try to make a real difference, But in any case, the purpose of this pressure is to see if the Niamey regime will become unsettled. So, I firmly believe that as long as the current regime stands strong and remains firm with the full and unwavering support of the people, I do not think that the original instigators of this resolution will see any signs of weakness whatsoever that they could possibly exploit. So there will be nothing at all.
I just wanted to say a word to the youth of Niger, to tell them not to let themselves be distracted by these storytellers. They said they wanted to democratize Libya. Nigerians, You are in the best position to know today how Libya has been democratized. Syria, everyone knows how it has been democratized since Syria ended up with a president, someone whose head they themselves had put a price on. They are going to democratize Afghanistan. We saw what that led to, democratize. I believe that no young Nigerian wants in the future their country to fall apart like Libya because they listen to dream sellers, to storytellers. So I think we need to take that into account, and that the Nigerian people, especially the Nigerian youth as one, should say to Europe, to the European Union, that this is a slaver's joke. And that has been bleeding and impoverishing Africa for over 100 years. Enough is enough.
Thank you, Excellent Sogoyu Kegebe. We have reached the end of this forum. We would like to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate your time, your support, your encouragement, your comments. Thank you. God bless you all. I will not waste your time. One question that is coming into my mind is, why is our leaders, Africa leaders, kept quiet and they are watching and they want to see what will happen before they step in? Because some of them, they are happy, they are laughing. Let's see what will happen. They are not stupid. Our leaders, General Abdurrahman Tiani, General Smegilta, Captain Ibrahim Traore, the citizens of the Alliance of Sahel States are not stupid. They knew this day will come. They are preparing as well. So let's wait and see. My only thing, I said it in one of my videos, if the Sahel will turn to grave, it won't be their people. It will be our people. Our people supposed to have sense now. Those who do not, I'm sorry. Those who do not, those who are still brainwashed, those who are still taking drugs and doing whatever they are doing, that their mind is not there properly, do not realize the fight, or this fight is not for them. Rather, they are fighting their own people, kidnapping their own people for ransom. Ask them to go and do dirty work for them. I hope they wake up before it's too late. Those graves turn to theirs before the black winter turn to us, deleting each other, just like what they are trying to create in the Middle East. So they will fight each other. They intentionally dropping bombs into different countries, blaming it on, so when they get annoyed, they will attack each other. I'll leave you here. Credit to New World, my brothers, my uncle. Thank you so much for what you are doing. I'm not going to mention your names because I'll butcher it and I don't want it. It's disrespectful. Thank you. God bless you all. May God give you strength to keep doing what you are doing, sharing light on what is going on, sharing your experiences, going into details to bring back things that some of us has no idea, has no clue about. We are all learning, and keep shining the light on Africa as a whole. Because this time, the misinformation is too much. We need people like you to be strong and stand still in what you believe. So I appreciate you. God bless you all. And may God bless our leaders. May God bless the whole world, because the whole world is in pain. We are all suffering from what is going on in the world now. And we don't need more. It is enough. Thank you. My members, thank you so much. My returning families, thank you. My VIPs, my kings and queens, thank you so much. Those of you super chatting me, I'm so grateful. God bless you all. If you are new here, my name is Mohammed, and you are very welcome. And yes, I've translated this video, work on it before sharing it with you. If you understand French, let me know. I will link it for you, part 1 and 2, and I put it together as one for you. I can make it for you to listen to it yourself and support them as well. Thank you so much. God bless you all. I'll be back with more videos or more news from Mali as well. See you soon. Bye bye for now.
Burkina makes the wake-up call. Whoa, whoa. Burkina makes the wake-up call.